But that relationship got me into trouble. Not just me, but us.
Did it drag your name down the gutter?
Let me just tell you. I have never stolen any money from anybody. And we had, and I risk a lot by saying this, but anyway, I've been through it and it's finished.
Let's talk about love. Love is such a topic that everybody loves. When it's love, guys are like, "Ooh, brings it on." But before that, we said something off camera, which is, said two things. The first one, and I wanted to find out about it. How did you feel when your show was taken? When your concept idea was, when you saw your concept idea and what you had pitched, after being told, come back after a month, how did you feel seeing somebody else do it? I say that because there's a media house I went to train, myself and George. We went to train them, and we trained them for like a day, and then I were to come back and get the contracts. They told us, we're calling you back, come back next week. Next week, no phone was ever answered, and we just saw them replicating everything we had taught them. And that hurt, felt pain.
Yeah. I mean, it hurt. I felt, I was sad, I was disappointed, I was angry. But somewhere at the back, I was affirmed. We were onto something. But I also became skeptical, and I realized people are not here for my success. And I have to be careful about who I work with. I kind of need to know who they are before I go telling them, this is what I want to do, and blah, blah, blah. And I always need to expect that it may not work out and not have all my hopes on this one thing, so that then I have different options that are available. Because you don't know whether this is going to work or this other one.
I get it.
Right?
Yep.
So diversifying, even when I have an idea, trying to find different options for it, not sort of just seeing this one and this is the one that's going to work, and just leaning on this one thing as the thing that's going to work, because it might not.
Yep.
So, and life is like that. It's about challenges and overcoming them all the time. And when those things happen, it's to be expected. It's life. And so have something else that you can lean back on.
Okay.
And so, it was disappointing. It was annoying, but it made me wiser.
And then the second conversation we're having, and I really like that Wamai said it, because Wamai is in this field as his core production, and I'm not talking about video production, I'm talking about theatrical productions as a producer and all of that. And I intentionally say that to plug him in, because Wamai likes being quiet sometimes. Yeah. But what he said was that this opened up even the door for him. His explosion was through Tinga Tinga. You clearly said Eric Wainaina's introduction into theater was Rwanda. And Wamai, being in the industry, explained and said that show that you guys did opened up the industry completely and let people know it was possible. How does it feel? And that sounds like a recurring theme in your life as a door opener.
I had not seen it that way until Wamai said it. And I'm like, wow, what an honor and what a privilege. I mean, I can't, it's not a money thing. It's just, what an amazing opportunity. The other thing that comes into my mind is, while I worked at Faida, and another door that I opened was just this whole thing of entrepreneurship and funding entrepreneurs in this country. I remember at this time, it was still early in my career. I think it was 2006. June 1st, President Kibaki announces that he's going to give 1 billion shillings to the youth of this country who are entrepreneurial. And he just made the announcement. I found out about the announcement much later, after June's 1st, speech. And I didn't think much about it. But I got a call, and this call was a lady. She said, I'm calling from Kencom, Ministry of Youth Affairs. Can you come for a meeting at 1 o'clock? I'm like, huh? They're rough, no finesse. It's just, can you come? It's government, you come now. Anyway, so I go for this meeting, and we were 6 of us. And the PS walks in, and I'm like, oh, yeah, I know this guy. And he says, you have been appointed to help us figure out how we're distributing this 1 billion shillings to the youth in this country across Kenya. And I was like, what? So let me just backtrack.
Yes, please.
So while I was still at Faida, well, I still am there. Again, similar to my story about the young man from university who came. It was 5 o'clock this day, and I get a call from the receptionist. No, this time it was my boss. He was head of operations at this time. And he calls me and he says, Rina, I need to leave. I need to go pick up my kids from school. And there's 5 men who are at the reception wanting to learn about shares and open an account. Can you help them? I'm like, I'm single. I have time. Of course, let them come.
Such a powerful thing, first of all, you've said.
Yeah.
You're single, you have time.
Yeah.
So you had no kids?
I had no kids.
Or married at the time?
I was not married. Right? And again, I was still excited about teaching. And I mean, I think teaching is one of my spiritual gifts. And I love it. So I told him, send them in. Actually, no, I went out and I got them and brought them to my desk, got them chairs, and they all sat. Distinguished men. I didn't know who they were from Adam, but I was happy to help them. And so they said that they were chama and that they wanted to start investing and blah, blah, blah. And I started taking them through how it works, that you need an account and all those details. And we began a relationship. And these guys would have chama meetings on a Saturday, on a Friday night. And they'd call me, can you come and tell us about how to evaluate? Okay, how do you value? I had gone back to school to do my CFA. And so, you know, the whole issue around valuing, reading financial statements, knowing the different ratios. And I was happy to teach them. And
we'll come back to that conversation of CFA. That's some accreditation that you need to be able to do investing.
So it's an accreditation, yes. It's a designation that you get after rigorous exams to become. You can become a portfolio manager. You can become a financial analyst. There's different things, but it's a world-renowned, well-known, and respected designation. Anyway, so they come. We have this conversation, and we begin a relationship. But it was through that process and me being so available to them that they began to see, hey, she's very eager, she's driven. And one of them, and I didn't know at this time, was a permanent secretary in government. I had no idea. Yeah. I never read any newspaper for nobody. I was in my 20s, didn't care for anything that was political. So, and the papers these days are a lot of politics. In fact, even till today, I only read the Business Daily. Anyway, so I get a call from one of them, and he says, send me your CV. And I'm like, I send you my CV. You know my situation. I'm not leaving. He said, no, don't worry about that. Just send me your CV. And he said, I can't tell you what it's for right now, but, just send me your CV. I said, okay. I polished up my CV and I sent it to them. The next thing was that phone call, come to Kencom. And so I get there.
Who was the PS? This was back in the day. You can say his name.
Oh, it's a sad one because he was murdered.
Oh.
Yeah, that's another whole other 1 hour story.
Okay.
So I don't want to get there.
No, okay. So no problem.
Allow me to just continue on this one. So put a pin on it.
The pin is definitely
there.
Yeah.
And I'll probably get there when the way the story is going. Anyway, so we get into this room and we're told about this 1 billion shillings. And the question was, how do we get this money to Kwale, Wajir, Kisumu, every corner of this country in a fair way?
Who are some of the people in the room with you?
There was Helen Tombo. She's now changed her name. But people probably remember her as Helen Tombo. There was Abshiro. There was Dana Wendo. Why is his name disappearing? I'll remember the names. But we were 6 of us. Myself and this lawyer. Why is your name not coming? And I know him very well.
The picture is there.
And the picture is there, but the name will come.
Yeah.
Anyway, so there were 6 of us in the room. I was the youngest experience-wise, and I looked around and I was just like, wow, what am I doing here? But I was like, I am here. And I'm like, sawa, let's move. So
I like that.
after night,
the imposter syndrome,
imposter syndrome
yeah.
was real. But I was like, see, I've been called. And I understood that I was in the room because of how they had recognized that I just didn't have, it wasn't by the XYZ shares because it is good. Like I went into the theory of it. And so I was the analyst in the room at that time.
Yes.
Anyway, so late nights of sleeping at 12 midnight, trying to figure out what relationships do we need. $1 billion is not a lot of money for lending to the whole youth of our country. It's not a lot, but how can we get matching funds? What will be the criteria? How do we do? I studied the Mohammed Yunus's model of village banking in India and how that was going and how can we make this thing work? And we all came up with a model that would use the existing financial system through banks, MFIs, SACCOs, to distribute the money because we didn't have the ability to do credit scoring. How do we distribute this money in a manner that makes sure that we get the money back? And every other institution in Kenya that lends money through government has used our model.
What?
The Women Fund, every fund that has been formed uses that same model to today. Can you believe it? Anyway, let me go back. So we sat down, we basically came up with a model of how the lending would happen, had meetings with all these different people. Of course, the Secretariat was fantastic because we worked together with them. We had to employ people. We got people seconded from the Ministry of Youth. We eventually wrote cabinet papers to get this thing created as a parastatal.
What?
It was eventually formed. We came up with the name, the Youth Enterprise Development Fund, and it was developed. And we employed people, and it began to run. And it was fantastic. Ma, let me tell you the stories that have come from the Youth Fund.
Give me some of the stories.
Just people
because
who...
I say this very cognizant of when you're saying that, I'm just thinking about the corruption side.
Of course, and that's the story that's told,
Yes.
right? That's the story that media chooses to portray. But there's many young people who've got money from the Youth Fund to move their business from one level to the other, to be able to buy stock, to be able to move from this place to the other, and have done so successfully. So there's many stories of young people who had nothing, who got 50K, just 50K.
Yep.
Able to buy stock, be able to give back the money, get 100K.
Nice.
And so on. And there's others who, through our partnerships, such as Enablis, there's an organization those days, a Canadian entity called Enablis, that used to lend money to young people as well. But for them, it was entrepreneurs. They didn't care whether you were 30 or 24. It was, you have a business, it makes sense. So they had a model that we liked because they also had training. They trained people on, they kind of had a hub, an incubator. Let me call it that, because I can't think of another. It was like an incubator where you go and you learn about marketing. And that's actually where I met Joram, because he was a member of Enablis, being supported by Enablis, being trained by Enablis.
Mwinamo.
Yeah, Joram Mwinamo. And so they had a program that they took entrepreneurs through and then would lend them money. And so the Canadian government, it was a Canadian government sort of initiative. But that relationship got me into trouble. Not just me, but us.
Did it drag your name down?
Oh my goodness.
The gutter.
Let me just tell you. I have never stolen any money from anybody. And we had, and I risk a lot by saying this, but anyway, I've been through it and it's finished. But we had I was the chairperson of the Finance and Administration Committee. So things around finance, budgets, HR fell under my docket. Okay, so because it became a parastatal, I moved from being on the advisory board to being on the board of directors.
Yes. At what age are you doing this at?
28.
Okay.
28, 29. Anyway, so, no, I was 30. I was 29 or 30, somewhere there. And then this guy...
You was a youth.
I was a youth, still a youth. I was in my 20s. Anyway, late 20s. So this guy gets hired, we liked him, but then something happened. And I started to realize something is going wrong when a budget came through. And one thing on the budget was for an RJ45. Remember, I was in IT. Do you know what an RJ45 is?
No idea.
Do you remember the cables that we used to run from our computers to the wall?
Yes.
And it clips. Tuck.
Yep.
That thing at the end, the plastic thing.
Yes.
That's an RJ45.
Yes.
And so on this list of budget things that are needed are RJ45s.
And because you had worked in
yeah, and guess how much they're being charged? What? Each RJ45, 2,000 shillings. So I'm like, so obviously I'm young, I'm naive. I thought everybody's for the good of this country. And I'm seeing RJ45, 2K. I said, excuse me. Are these RJ45 made of gold? Because they were like 20 bob, eh?
Yes.
Like the most expensive maybe 45 shillings. Yep. 2,000 what? For one RJ45. So of course you can imagine how many they needed.
Yep.
So I was like, what are you guys doing? And I blew it up. And I told off the head of IT, I'm just like, this is nonsense. Can you go back and give us a proper budget? What are you doing? So it would be so little things like that. So because of my naivety, I went gung-ho and went to see the minister. And I told her, listen, of course with the rest of the board members, and I'm the one who now told her there's stuff that's happening that shouldn't happen. Let's send the CEO home. Because what is all this? That's one example of many things that went wrong.
Yeah.
Where? So what I didn't realize, there was political influences that enabled certain people to survive in certain spaces. And the moment I did that, the next thing was a 16-page letter about what I had done and how I had stolen and how I'd wanted to invest the youth fund money in Safaricom.
What?
Then there was a whole Mars report about me. And then I ended up being interviewed by the Kenya Anti-Corruption Commission. I was interviewed by the Directorate of Investigation. I was in a space where there were 4 men interrogating me about stealing from this government. Guy.
What?
Let me tell you, I never used to sleep. I used to cry every night in my house. They're saying I stole. From who? What? I used to spend nights figuring out with the other board members, how are we going to make this thing work? How do we ensure the government, it's a revolving fund and the money comes back?
Yes.
So that then we don't have people not paying. The moment people know it's government money, they don't pay. How do we make them pay? How do we make sure that, we're always, everything that we did was to help this thing. And then now what? Yeah. So I got into this big trouble. There was all these articles on human rights, I don't know what reports, and then I'm being investigated. Where?
So Rina, how you keep insane at this time?
I wasn't. So there's a pastor, Akima, Pastor Linda, thank you. I'd been
this is the time of Mavuno?
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
I'd been in her house, go, we need to pray. She tells me there's a guy called Hezekiah in the Bible. He went through the same thing. Pastor Linda is fiery.
Yes.
Open it. Put it down. That document that they've written, just open it the way Hezekiah said, look, God wrote the vision about me. These lies. And we prayed. And we prayed very serious prayers about how I would be vindicated, how this would not go anywhere. The guy, meanwhile, was restored back to his job.
No. Oh, so they did fire him?
No, we sent him home.
Oh, you did as a board?
Compulsory.
Yes, because you've got the power to do that.
Yeah, but he was brought back because he had political connections and whatever.
So this was above you guys.
Guy, what am I saying? Are you going to have this one?
Yes. No, listen. Do you know why it's important to say this? First of all, I'm glad it's years later.
It's many years later.
If it was then, if this was happening then, I'd definitely not air this.
Yeah.
But I am aware this is still happening now for somebody who's trying to do the right thing in the position that they've been put.
Yeah.
Also, I like that you're painting a true reality of corruption within the country. You get what I mean? And also, I like that you're painting the picture that there are people in government who actually want the things to work.
There are many.
Every time we say the word government, we blanket it to mean a whole entire, from president all the way until I don't know who works in the government is corrupt. But what you're saying is that there are few or many apples that are not rotten. But it's hard, so I'm trying to figure out, because it's costly. It is costly. So like now what's happening to you? So are you vindicated?
Eventually. But
Your spirit was completely
Oh my God.
killed.
I cannot explain to you what it did to me. Hey, what are you saying? You know, like being taken to police, you're being asked questions, the same question over in a different way.
But they had no proof. Or now they began fabricating proof.
They didn't have proof, but what happens, they need to demonstrate
that they are looking for that.
No. If there's been an accusation.
I get it.
Yeah. They have to demonstrate that it is not true. So there's a process that happens. Let me just tell you, it was rough. I was so... And then in the same time, we planned... Anyway, I don't want to talk about it. Let me just leave that part off. Because that one was... It's still... it's a heavy one.
No problem. But what you're saying is it gets worse.
It gets worse. But let me just say, it was so bad that APs would be sent to the boardroom, and it got to the point we're not even allowed to hold meetings, and anyway, I ended up resigning.
Wow.
Yeah, ended up resigning. I'm like, and you know one thing somebody asked me, kwani hizi pesa ni za babako? Kuna shida gani? Can you believe that? I was like, huh? And I said, anyway, I'm too young for this stuff.
I'm out.
I was pregnant with a baby.
Oh.
And I'm like,
I'm not ready.
I don't need this stress.
You don't.
And so I resigned.
Okay, let me try and ask questions that are not directly, that you can speak about. Is there hope then? This is Kibaki's time. This is when I'd think everything is... Were you also so wounded that... Would you work with government now?
No.
Oh my God. But you're the professionals. So you get what I'm trying to say? So what's the hope then? Or is it that you didn't have the backbone? Were you not... I'm trying to find what's the hope. There has to be hope in this story where integrity can work within government. I have to find that hope. We can't leave this story without it.
I think there's always hope. You just need... I think I have... My priority is my family right now. So my priority is not to fight for this country. I'm sorry.
In that way.
I'm not Moses, right? So that's not my calling on this planet. I'm not ready to die. I'm not Jesus. So it needs a Moses. It needs someone who's like, let my people go.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I am not him right
okay.
now. And I don't feel the call I don't feel that call on my life right now. Let me just say, God has not spoken. So because he has not spoken, I will serve in the way that I can within what I know to do.
Okay.
I'm not ready to...
I get it. We'll leave this conversation hanging in the air. But, but honestly speaking...
But again, there's always hope.
Yes.
I think there's always hope. I think one of the things that I recognize about Kenya as a country is that we are a special people.
Michael Joseph calls it peculiar, but I do agree.
No, of course we're peculiar, but we are special.
No, hands down we're special. I get it.
I can tell you the amount of women, mothers, who spend their days praying for this nation. It's the only reason we're standing. It's the only reason that we boast about the peace that we enjoy and the lovely people that we have in this country, and the fact that we're not at war killing each other.
Yep.
And so there's definitely hope.
Yesterday, media sat down and grilled our president. I keep saying, show me a country that shares a border with us, or shares a border with a country that shares a border with us, that could have happened.
Yeah, I mean, there's so many things. There's so many gems in this country. So many innovations that continue to come. People continue to do such amazing, fantastic things.
Are you talking about CTA?
I'm talking about CTA. I'm talking about Twiga. I'm talking about PESA. I'm talking about, just the little solutions that people come up with, the number of people that you find who are just doing such wonderful things for the community that they're in.
Yeah.
From Roho Safi, not looking for. So there's that few who are spoiling our name and doing the wrong thing, but it needs to be dealt with, especially from the younger people, so that they're not chasing money. and glorifying wealth, riches, let me say.
Yes.
Because then it paints the wrong picture.
Last question about that era, and then I promise you we move on. Did you fear for your life in that time?
Yes, I did. I did.
Wow.
I was very afraid. Yeah.
Okay. Back to Faida. Let's just take a break. That one is heavy. That's like me is heavy.